Hey, I'm training to be a championship cuber and documenting the process. If you're new here, every single week, I make a training plan for exactly how I'm going to work on cubing that week, log all of it in a spreadsheet, then review the training in a video like this based on what I did poorly and how I can get better the next week. My ultimate goal is to get to the final round of a major championship sometime by the end of 2031 for everything from 3x3 up to 7x7. Today, I'm going to recap what I did last week in 3x3 and 5x5, then talk about what I like to call the Eye of Sauron method, the best way to practice cubing, and then what I'm going to work on next week. My next competition is Agora Winter 2026. I'm doing 3x3, the only event I really care about, and then also doing 2x2, square one, and clock for the funny. I'm sponsored by thecubicle.com. Use code TRUE at checkout for 5% off if you want to support me and what I'm trying to do. So let's jump into it. What did I work on last week? 3x3, I did not work on very much. It was very much a step back and reflect week for 3x3. I've kind of been all over the place with my 3x3. I had like 2.5 months from October to December of last year where I was de-rusting after not cubing for a solid 1.5 years. And I went from like 13 down to right about 10 seconds. And as I did that, I really wasn't getting much advice on what to do. I was basically being told by the coaches I was working with at the time, just keep working, solve more, do slow solves, etc. But I didn't get very much specific advice. So in the effort of doing a lot of work and trying to get faster, I kind of gave myself a lot of bad habits or ingrained bad habits. So the last few weeks since middle of December have been a little all over the place. I thought about using Rue, decided against that, started learning ZB, then realized that learning algorithms does not seem like the best way to use my brain at this given time. So this week was much less focused on 3x3, and I kind of have this theme of fixing bad form, undoing all the bad habits that I have and starting back down the path of gradually improving well. In weightlifting, something that can happen is if I'm really desperate to get a new PR, a new most weight I've ever lifted, I can kind of use poor form to move a little bit more weight than I moved the week before. That's good because I moved more weight, but there are two problems with that. One is I'm more likely to get injured, which hurts my long-term progress. And two is the muscle I want to be working isn't actually being worked. I'm using poor form that removes weight load from the muscle that I'm trying to use and just lets me move the weight more easily. In order to progress long-term in weightlifting, you need to use the best form you can so that you don't get injured and can make gradual progress over time, and because using good form allows the muscles you want to grow over time. And with cubing, I haven't been using good form on 3x3. I haven't been filming my solves, sending solve footage to a coach, getting feedback on my specific solutions, specific finger tricks, etc. I've kind of been going based off all the knowledge that I had previously. And this week was the first time where any of that stuff has changed. My global was actually 10.8, almost a full second slower than what I was globaling a few weeks ago, which I see that as a good thing because it shows that I'm trying to implement new finger tricks and new ways of solving, which I'll explain here in a second. The first thing that I'm trying to work on is bad regrips when I rotate. So something that Dylan Miller pointed out to me this week is a lot of my solves when I rotate, I will rotate into my thumb being on the bottom of the cube right here, which I had no idea I did this. Nor did I even realize it was bad, but it's actually very bad. I would often be in this position and going to solve an F2L pair like this, and I would rotate into my thumb being on the top or the bottom here so that I could solve the pair. The problem is this pair can easily be solved regripless. Same thing for something like this. I would rotate into my thumb being on the top because I was looking at what was going to come next. So in theory, the look ahead was good, but in practice, I'm constantly regripping or rotating the cube in such a way that number one creates a slower rotation because I'm rotating into my thumb being on the top. That's worse than rotating just normally with your thumb staying in home grip. And number two, I was putting my hands in a disadvantageous position because you can access way more of your fingers from home grip versus thumb on the top. So that's a super bad habit that I did not realize I was doing in more than half of my solves that I'm working really hard to undo at this point. Another bad habit is doing a slight regrip in a rolling R2. For this OLL, what you're supposed to do is do an R2 like this, and then do the rest of the algorithm. You can do this without starting the algorithm with a regrip. You can start from home grip with your thumbs in the front, rest your fingers on the back, and just kind of roll the right side up like this. But what I've been doing is doing a regrip and then doing the rolling move from there. My hand ends up in the exact same position, fingers on the bottom, thumb on the top. But I was wasting time doing this at the start of the algorithm. This is something else that falls into the category of slight mistake that I wouldn't have known I was making unless I reviewed my footage and got advice from other people. Here's another thing that I realized I've been doing poorly, thanks to Dylan Miller again for pointing this one out. It's a lot of excess hand movement. So there are many algorithms where when I'm doing a regrip, instead of regripping and keeping my fingers close to the surface of the cube, I will move my hand really, really wide, do the regrip, and then come back like this. That's bad for two reasons. One is the travel distance from here all the way up and back down obviously takes extra time, which isn't good. But the other one is it makes my hands kind of unstable. My turning on 3x3, if you had to describe it, can be described as loose or flowy. Flowy is being generous, loose is being more realistic, because none of the finger tricks or ways that I turn look stable or solid. If I pick up a much slower cube like this RS3MV5 that has really, really thick lubricant in it, I can't do a lot of my loose finger tricks and turning style. In order to make this work, I have to keep my hands in home grip. I have to do precise flicks, pinch moves instead of long flick moves like this in order to turn quickly. And there were a lot of algorithms where I was turning loosely and I was allowing my hand to drift and my fingers to drift really far away from the surface of the cube, which slowed me down and made my turning unstable. That's another thing that I noticed this week that I'm trying to work on. Another specific thing that I'm trying to work on, you can tell where my head is with 3x3, is instead of just solving and generally getting better at Lookahead, it's identifying specific things I'm doing and how to do them better. It's when to use flicks, pushes, and pulls. So let me go back to this, and this is a good cube. So something that I do a lot in my solves is this U prime, where I move my left index around and do this. I have a lot of algorithms like JPerm where I use this to start, which I think is really smooth because you start here and then you go into a push. Or I do this for soon. And I think it's really smooth. It feels nice to me. The problem is this is a lot of finger movement. There are very situational times where this is an okay thing to do, but far more often I'm doing this move after an R move. Pinch U prime here, or pinch U here, is almost always better than doing this motion. It's, in theory, I think biologically faster to do a flick like this versus a pull like this because of the way your joints and muscle fibers work. I don't know for sure. That could be total bro science. I'll do some research and get back to you on it. But doing pull U moves like this or this is almost always really bad when I have both hands available. Obviously, one-handed solving, what are you gonna do? Sometimes you just end up over here. But for two-handed, shouldn't be working on this. Should be doing a lot more push U moves or pinch U moves. There are a ton of algorithms that I've been doing, or F2L finger tricks, where between doing this and rotating so that my thumb is on top to solve things, I've been locking up for absolutely no reason. And if I could just rebuild my habits to rotate into home grip and solve using push U moves here or pinch U moves with my right hand, a lot of things get more stable. What that means is I've gotten a good bit slower as I've been working on implementing all of these finger tricks. That's why my global this week was much higher, along with some of the Lookahead stuff I'll talk about in a second. But when it works, my solves are much, much faster on 3x3 and on 5x5. Turning stability, just talked about that. All these finger trick things, regrip things, using the correct finger movements, regripping well, it helps my turning stay more connected to the cube and look much more solid and stable. That's a general thing that I've been thinking about. I've been using slower cubes a good bit this week. I have several RS3MV5s, Waylong V11s on the way from the cubicle. Some of them I got pre-set up with Angstrom, and I have literally every lube from the cubicle sitting on my shelf, and I'm gonna make a video of me experimenting with making cubes that are really, really slow and seeing how that helps me practice and work on Lookahead and such. But turning stability is another thing. that slow cubes help with. So I keep mentioning Lookahead, but I haven't directly talked about it yet today. I think Lookahead is my biggest weakness right now. My turning is not great. There are a lot of small details that need improved. But if you look at my solves as a whole, I can't inspect much further than cross, occasionally cross +1. My turning is okay. My last layer solutions and my F2L solutions are actually quite good for somebody who's at my speed. But my ability to look ahead really, really fluidly is probably the farthest away from world class of any of my skills, on 3x3 in particular. On my big cubes, Lookahead is great, but on 3x3, it's super bad, which is a massive problem. It's the skill that underpins all other skills of 3x3. Something Dylan Miller and I talked about this week is the Lookahead flowchart. This is the gradual progression of steps. I'll leave this on screen. You can pause if you want to read it, but I will just explain it now. So on 3x3, when you're doing a solve, there's a general order of looking at the cube that you want to do. The first thing you want to check for is if you have a matching set of F2L pieces in the top layer. In this case, I do. It's this orange-green pair. So that makes by far the most sense to go into. So I would probably rotate and solve that. Then I would be seeing this in the top layer. And so I would do that next. As I'm solving this, I noticed that there is no matching pair in the top layer. Are there any single F2L pieces in the top layer is the next thing I should be looking for. And I see this green-red edge, and I see this green-red edge in the slot I'm about to go into. So single piece in the top layer, is there a matching piece in the front slots? There is for this, and there is for this. I'm going to check this slot first because this is the slot I'm about to insert into. So I'd probably go into this pair next. Then as I'm doing this, I see this corner. Is there anything in this front slot? There is. There's an edge right here. So now I know what my last pair is going to be. So that's the rough flow chart. Do I have matching pieces in the top layer? If so, solve them. If not, do I have single pieces in the top layer? If so, where's the match? Is it in my front slots? Ideally the one that I'm going to be solving into so that it gets forced out. If it's not in there, is it in my back slots? It has to be. Okay, is it in a back slot that I'm going to naturally reveal as I solve the puzzle? Like the way that I'm doing my F2L solutions, I'll see it without having to tip the cube around. If it's not in the course of my normal solution, is it deducible in my back slot? Like if I look at it from this side angle and I only see one color of it, will I be able to figure out what it is? And if none of those things are true, then I will literally have to look at the back slots or do a rotation. But that's the Lookahead flowchart or process that should be cycling in your head completely automatically as a 3x3 solver. The highest level 3x3 solvers are doing this without even thinking about it. They're just looking at the cube and going, where's my next pair? It's in the top layer. Part of it's in the top layer. Is it in the front? No. Is it in the back? Let me check. There it is. Now I'm going to repeat this for my next F2L pair. And they do this over and over and over again, super, super fast. I do not do this habitually at all. I can do this if I think very, very, very actively about it. And when I think very, very actively about finding F2L pairs, I'm sort of okay at it, but not great. On big cubes, my Lookahead ability is actually very good. And it happens near automatically. I can go 2 or 3 hours on big cubes without my Lookahead suffering. I just get tired and turn a little bit slower, come up with less creative solutions, etc. But on 3x3, after about 30 or 45 minutes of solving, my brain is completely fried and I stop looking ahead almost completely. At the start of probably November, as I was getting less rusty from cubing, I was really overconfident in how well I could look ahead and how good my turning was. I think this last section of the video shows you how many optimizations I have to do. I'm still not sub 10. Just because I'm trying to improve so many things about my solves. The road to a 3x3 major final is extremely, extremely long. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get that far. Right now, I'm not worried about getting to a 3x3 final. I'm worried about getting sub 10. The goal may happen eventually, but what I'm worried about is improving my current state as a solver, optimizing all the little habits I talked about. And if that happens over and over and over again, long enough that I can get to a final, great. But I have so far to go before I get even remotely close to that point. So right now, I'm kind of trying to forget about my dreams of being in finals for 3x3 and just focus on doing work today. And we'll see if it takes me that far, but who really knows? This is another fun thing that I've started doing this week to train on 3x3. I wanted to put this in here. It's a tracking drill. So my ability to look into inspection isn't amazing. I can see cross every time, and I can see cross +1 some of the time. To get better at planning cross +1, I need to get better at visualizing how pieces move around the cube. How do you learn the skill of seeing where pieces are going to go? Well, you practice it. So what specifically I'm doing is this. I will scramble 2 identical cubes like this. Then on one of them, I will solve my cross. Once cross is solved on one of them, I hand this puzzle to my wife, who's sitting next to me, and I don't look at it again. Now I have the scrambled version of the puzzle before I solved the cross in front of me. And my wife will ask me, okay, where is the blue, red, yellow corner? And I have to trace this corner through the cross solution I just did and tell her where it ends up. Then she'll ask me, okay, where's the blue-red edge? And now I have to trace that and tell her where it ends up and what orientation it's in. And I do this for every corner edge combo of the cross. Then we solve both cubes and we do this again. This drill has completely exposed how poor I am at visualizing piece movements. I thought I was okay at it. As it turns out, I am not good at it at all. First, I often forget the cross solution that I planned out. I only plan it out just well enough to barely get it done in the solve. I have to be rock solid on what my cross solution is to be able to track pieces through and around it. Second, it is really helping me get faster at tracking pieces. I can track pieces given enough time, but now I'm having to do it for 10 or 15 minutes in a row as we do these drills across 5 or 6 different scrambles. And it's making me way faster at figuring out how pieces move and checking what pieces never move or only move once within a cross solution. The other really good thing this drill is helping me with is it's developing my instincts of what is or isn't going to be a good first pair. Every time I do this, I'm tracking every potential F2L pair after my cross solution. So what that means is, now as I'm looking at the pieces before a cross solution, I'm able to just intuit, oh, these 2 are going to end up in a good spot, these 2 are going to end up in a bad spot, and so on and so forth, which is going to make eventually planning X crosses or tracking first pair every solve much better, because I'll know what to spend mental energy thinking about versus not thinking about. So that's a really cool drill. I will definitely be continuing that this next week. That's it for 3x3 stuff. Big cubes was where I spent most of my time, specifically on 5x5. I've been focusing on 5x5 for the last 2 weeks. Last week I did about 250 solves. This week I did closer to 400 solves. Last week my best average of 50 was 105.4. This week my best average of 50 was 103.9. So pretty solid improvement. And I got a sub 1 average of 5 this week, which made me so happy. I'm going to keep working on 5x5 for at least another week as my main focus because I have a lot of momentum. I'm learning a lot of skills. I'm setting PBs left and right. So it only makes sense to carry this momentum for another week or 2. I'll talk more about that when I talk about the Eye of Sauron method, which is basically doing that. First big thing I did with 5x5 at the end of this week, yesterday on Saturday, was I switched from the GAN 5x5 to the new Ouchwang. This is the double track version. I believe this has the PyCube modifications in it. And I really liked the GAN 5x5. I got this new one from the Cubicle a couple weeks ago. It was set up with the FZ setup and it felt super nice. And when I tried the Ouchwang they sent me, I wasn't super impressed. It felt really tight. It felt really snappy. Like the magnets and the alignments were really harsh. So it didn't feel like I could be smooth and fluid with my solving. And I wasn't sure what I felt about like its speed and its size and all that. It felt very different compared to the GAN Cube. This came out of the box and was usable much faster. But one day, I decided to give this puzzle a try, like actually give it an average of 25, and within 12 solves of starting to actually give this a shot, I had broken the sub 1 barrier for average of 5. I think some of the reasons for that are this cube is much more stable than the GAN 5x5. That's really important when I'm trying to turn fast on edges in 3x3 stage. I can fly through easy sections of edge pairing, F2L, or last layer, and the cube never feels loose or has random catch problems that this puzzle can have. The downsides of this one compared to the GAN are that it's a little bit smaller, so if you're into big cubes, that's a negative. It is definitely a little bit tighter. So if you're into something that feels really clean and that you are in control of every turn, kind of like how the GAN 3x3s feel, then you will like this. But I find this to be much, much, much better. And from talking to several other fast big cube solvers, that seems to be the general consensus, is that this puzzle outshines the GAN, which is also nice because this is a good bit cheaper than the GAN 5x5. So this is definitely my current recommendation for anybody who's in the market for a 5x5. Code true at the cubicle. Next thing that I was working on this week is optimizing how I solve my centers. I streamed 5x5 a few times in the last week, and Matahiro Tuanaba and Dylan Miller and Carter Thomas and Mark Zimmerman all got on my case and told me, hey man, you gotta improve your 5x5 centers. They don't look very good. And I was like, what do you mean? What sort of things am I doing wrong? Well, let me show you a few of the big things that I found out that I was doing wrong. Here's a case that Carter Thomas showed me, and it completely blew my mind. This orange center does not look nice at all, but this is actually a phenomenal center case. What you can do is use this edge and this corner position relative to this little L shape and make a T out of it. The T in 5x5 centers is totally amazing. I referenced this last week in a different video, but I didn't realize how many applications it has, because that case can be reduced into a T, which you can then make into a 2x3, and now you're off to the races. I did not realize how many cases are like the one I just showed you, where with a little bit of smart work, you can reduce into a T. So like here, what I would always do previously is reduce into a 2x3. But seeing this pre-made 1x3, now I'm inclined to make this a T, solve the 2x3, and then finish the center, because the bar stays on the right and I can kick the right side out with this 1x3 bar right here. For this, the best thing to do is just make the 2x3 here and then pair these. But there's a whole bunch of places where I wasn't using T, and when I watched Carter Thomas posted some walkthrough solves this week, I went and watched through those. There are a lot of places where you can force a T that I wasn't forcing it. Last week, I knew in theory that using T's was good, but now I've seen several places where I need to force it in my solves. And it tends to add up to like 3 or 4 extra slice moves that I'm saving, which isn't a lot on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's like a full second. So that's one optimization. Another one is that my edge pairing has gotten a lot smoother just because I've done so many solves. A couple weeks ago, I was pausing a lot during edges and I wasn't turning as quickly as I could be. The ouchwang has helped me turn faster, and then just a lot of exposure is making me really comfortable inserting edges into the back, really comfortable tracking where all 3 edge pieces are for an edge instead of just 2, which means I can avoid unnecessary flips. Let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, so let's take blue-red in this example. The middle edge piece is right here. There's one edge piece over here in the back, and there's one edge piece right here in the front left. A couple weeks ago, when I was solving, I would probably have only seen these 2 edge pieces and not seen the one that's hiding over here in the back. What I would have done is probably flipped this edge, paired these 2, and now I'd be left with another flip. I have to get this piece in the back to flip like that, and now pair it. The thing is, now that my lookahead is getting better, I'd probably be able to find all 3 edge pieces before I start pairing them, and see that it would be smarter to pair these 2 first, then flip this, and come back. This is just something that comes with time and being able to absorb more information at once in a solve. I knew I should be doing this in theory a couple weeks ago, but now that I'm doing more solves and my brain is being able to absorb more information at once, I'm making many more good decisions like this at a much higher speed. there's a whole bunch of little things in both 3x3 and 5x5 where I'm just trying to fix one little solution, one little regrip, one little center solution. But all those tiny improvements add up, and I'm seeing a lot of momentum in my 5x5 solving, and I want to recreate that in 3x3. I'm super happy to be sub 1, at least have a PB of sub 1. I'm really happy that my global is right around 1 minute 4 seconds right now on 5x5, and I'm hoping to keep pushing that. So I'm gonna carry that into my next week's worth of 5x5 practice. Friendly reminder, sponsored by The Cubicle, code TRUE for 5% off so that you can support the work that I'm doing. So next thing I want to talk about is the Eye of Sauron method. This is a term that I heard from some guy on YouTube who talks about content creation and building personal brands, but I thought it was really cool and it applies directly to cubing. I'm a big Lord of the Rings nerd, and the Eye of Sauron in those stories is like the representation of the bad guy, and the Eye of Sauron can like look around the entire land where the Lord of the Rings happens and look in one particular spot, and it has this like searchlight, you can see it on the slide here, where like the Eye of Sauron falls on one particular thing, and like the power of the Eye of Sauron just like it turns the tide of the battle. It makes things happen. When the Eye of Sauron sees something, he sends his bad guy minions to go take care of whatever it is that he sees. I think this is a really cool visual for the idea of working with a narrow focus. What I mean by that is cubing is something that you can have many different things going on all at once. You can be practicing lots of events, lots of skills all at the same time, and that's a lot of fun. But the most effective way to practice is to laser vision on one thing at a time and put all your effort into that one thing. I've worked for a couple of different people who own lots of businesses. By lots, I mean I've worked for 2 different guys who each own over 15 companies that are all making very good money. How does one person help run 15 companies? Well, one is none of those companies are absolutely massive. They're all on the small side. But number 2 is these guys would only ever focus on one thing, one problem at a time. Almost everything about the businesses they own is in complete dysfunction. But the one place where the owner of the companies is looking would be taken insanely good care of. He would fix everything in the business he was focused on at the time. Then he would move on and forget about it for like a year, and then come back and be super focused on it again. And somehow he managed to make this work, juggling everything by narrowly focusing on one thing at a time. When you are able to focus on something, essentially to the exclusion of everything else, that's the best way to get results. A lot of people talk about focus, but don't talk about excluding other things. The very idea of focus is picking something and only doing that thing. Here's why I believe focusing on one skill or one event or one piece of knowledge at a time in cubing is by far the best way to improve instead of doing multiple things at once. Here is a couple of analogies so that maybe you get the point of what I'm trying to say. When you are trying to save money, it doesn't really matter how much money you earn. It matters how much you earn over what you have to spend each week. If you earn the same amount of money that you have to spend each week, you're never going to save any money. Only the money you earn after the money that it takes to pay your bills helps you get stuff in your savings account. Each hour of work that you put in, which gives you money back, is not created equal. If your goal is saving money, the only hours that actually help you save money are the last few hours of a week that you work, because those are the ones where you're earning money that will go in your savings account instead of to pay rent and buy you food, etc. If you're trying to build muscle, most of the workouts that you do are not actually going to build muscle. If I am going to go curl some weight, the first 5 or 6 curls that I do, my bicep is not actually going to grow from those. I'm just kind of tiring out my bicep. It's only in the last 1 or 2 reps, the ones right at the point where my muscle is about to completely give out, where curling the weight is going to cause growth to my muscle. Each rep you do is not created equal. Only the last couple at the end of a long, hard workout are the ones that will cause growth. You have to do all the early ones to unlock the growth that comes in the last ones. Extreme focus on one thing is how you get to the growth points in whatever it is that you're doing. Extreme focus on working like 3 jobs and earning lots of money is how you get into that golden territory where the money you're earning goes into your savings account instead of just paying your bills. Doing one workout all the way to failure is how you get your muscles to grow, instead of hopping around to like 9 different workouts and doing all of them halfway to failure. Picking one skill in cubing and doing it tons and tons and tons is how you get to the point where you're really going to grow in the skill, instead of doing 5 or 6 events and only improving a tiny bit in each of them. When you extremely focus on one thing, when you laser vision into one event, you have way less de-rusting to do every time you pick up the event, which means you have less warm-up time. The 5x5 solves that I've been doing for the last couple weeks, I really only have to do 1 or 2 warm-up solves each day before I'm right back at the skill level I was during my previous session. If I were to pick up a 7x7 right now, it would probably take me 12 to 20 solves, a full session basically, to sort of de-rust, and the following day would be the same thing. When your brain is already used to focusing on something, it takes way less time just to get to the point where your work is effective. Extreme focus makes it so that you don't hide from a wall or a bad habit. This happened to me in 3x3. I've been doing multiple other events alongside my 3x3 practicing, which means that some really obvious weaknesses I have, like poor lookahead and poor inspection and lots of regrips in my turning and a few flaws in the algorithms that I choose, I haven't had to worry about because I've been getting just a little teeny weeny bit of progress from my 3x3, but I've been focused on like 4 different events at a time, which means that a little bit of progress in all of them makes me happy. But if you're focused on one event and you hit a wall on that event, like a new algorithm you have to learn or a new method you have to learn, by staying entirely focused on that one event, you have nowhere to hide. You have to learn that new thing. You have to fix that bad habit if you want to see progress. I think that's really cool. By focusing on one thing, you eliminate the likelihood that you're going to not do the hard thing by switching, and instead make it more likely that you do the hard thing now that gets you progress in the thing that you care about so that you can improve in it later. Another thing is that extreme focus on one event gives you a lot of progress in those events, which is a ton of fun. I was talking to Dominic Radici about this on the podcast I did with him. You can find it on my channel. And he said that he thinks the reason all rounding is good is because when you focus on one event for a while, then switch to another event and focus on it for a while, you get lots of progress in the one thing you're focusing on, which is really fun and makes you want to grind it more. Then when progress eventually slows down in that one, you can focus on one and only one other event and get lots of progress in that one. So you always have the feeling of progress coming. He said he does not at all recommend trying to get good at lots of events at once, because then you get less feeling of progress and you spend less time in the growth zone. This is what actually fast cubers at many different events say as well. So when I'm talking about focus, I don't mean you can't enjoy doing lots of events. I mean picking one event at a time and working on it. It can mean focusing on one skill category at a time. Most solvers, when you ask them what they should be working on, they say, I should work on this algorithm set, and I should work on my turning, and my lookahead, and my inspection, and my regrips, and my whatever. And they list like 6 different things. That's not focus. Focus means one thing. Pick one thing and always improve it. Your brain can really only keep up with like 1 or 2 things at once. The best coaches I've ever worked with in sports or debate or now cubing are the ones who tell me, here's the one thing to work on. Improve this. Then I improve it and they say, here's another thing to work on. The coach sees like 20 different things I could be working on, but only gives me one thing to focus on so that I can actually improve it. Charlie Eggins talked about how he focused on purely learning 3-style, which I'd classify as a technique, and not executing it, not doing lots of solves, not doing anything else. He just learned the algorithms for 3-style. Then he went into a season of improving on everything that he learned. First, he focused on absorbing the information. Then he focused on implementing it well. Seasons of focus, doing one event, then switching to another one, focusing on inspection, then focusing on turning, then focusing on lookahead. That's the way that you get big progress over time. You really can't only focus on one thing. You have to switch focus from time to time. And it's okay if in my season of focusing on 5x5, I'm getting slower at 4x4 or 7x7. Because I'm making so much progress in my 5x5 season that eventually when I get to 7x7 season, I will make a lot of progress in that as well because of my focus. And even if my 5x5 skill depletes a little bit, the amount of progress I make now will outweigh the slight decrease in skill I will have later. Embrace seasonality. Like, just focus on one thing, be okay with switching during different seasons. It's the nature of life. It's the nature of improvement. This is one last note that I'm more putting here to preach to myself. When you do this narrow focus on one thing and then switch every so often strategy, it is really easy to focus on, let's say, just 3x3 for like a week and you get a little bit faster. And then you switch to 4x4 for like a week and you get a little bit faster, and then 5x5, and you rotate through a whole bunch of different events. And then a month and a half later, you come back to the first one you started on and you're the exact same level you were a month ago. You haven't actually made progress. You just got a tiny bit better and then you regressed as you hadn't picked it up. And you get a tiny bit better and then you regress because you haven't picked it up. You have to spend long enough focused on a skill that you make so much progress in it that even if you worsen a little bit at the skill, it doesn't matter. You have progressed so much that the tiny bit of regression you have by not practicing it is outweighed by the giant amount of progress you made while you were in the focus season. So that's why for 5x5, I'm going to give it at least 3 weeks of focus so that I can drop like 3 to 5 seconds off my global and then go focus on other events, so that when I come back and pick 5x5 back up, I'll probably have regressed from like a 102 global down to a 105 global, but I can easily work my way back to a 102 global and then make more progress. So yeah, this goes into this idea of making actual progress in seasons. Pick one event, maybe two, just do those two. When you switch events, actually switch. Don't now start doing 4 events instead of just the 2. Make so much progress in one event as you're practicing it that when you switch off of it and come back to it, the progress will largely have stuck. Brian Johnson on Discord told me that what he does is he always is practicing square one, and then he has a second event that he rotates through. So maybe he's practicing 3x3 in square one, then he's practicing 6x6 in square one, then he's practicing pyraminx in square one, and so on. He is only ever doing 2 things at once, and when he switches from one event to another, he actually makes the switch and is now focused on 2 different events. Brian, if you're watching this, maybe clarify that with a comment. I did my best to explain it, but might have butchered it. Speaking of which, you should join my Discord. I have a Discord server. It's in my link tree. It's cool people in there. We talk about cubing, share our PBs. I message people about my videos. You can talk to me. It's cool. You should join it. I've shilled this a bunch, code true at the cubicle, etc. So what am I doing next week for my practice? Well, my main focus is 3x3. And this needs to be true for the next month, because I have 2 comps for 3x3 and I need to establish some good momentum in 3x3. I have a giant hill to climb and need to form good new habits. My focus is Lookahead. The habit I'm undoing is the rotation regrips, but I don't think that's enough of a focus to actually be like the main thing I'm thinking about. My focus is that Lookahead framework I shared with you earlier. The idea of what pieces are in the top layer, what matches with them, are they in the front, are they in the back, and doing that habitually. I'm going to try and for one session, what I'm going to do is 10 minutes of the tracking drill with my wife, then a few slow solves to warm up, and then my wife and I will solve together. She scrambles and I solve, and I'll do an average of 50. We take a 2 or 3 minute break, and then another average of 50. This feels like about where my brain's productive limit is if my goal is to make new habits. If my goal is to refine existing habits, I can go 2 to 3 hours without getting tired. But right now, this routine takes me a little over an hour, and I'm pretty mentally tired at the end of it. Like, I can't keep forming the new Lookahead habit. So this will be the system for this week. Ideally, I do a session like this twice a day, but minimum once a day. If I do it once a day all week, I'll be happy. 5x5, on the days after I do this, I'm going to do a average of 25, which is much less than I did last week, but that's because I have a lot more 3x3 to do this week. And then I'm also going to do example solves and slow solves each week. Each day a little bit, because I want to make focused on last 4 centers. I have enough inefficiencies there that I want to make sure that I spend a little bit of time each day doing slow-mo over Timon solves or watching walkthroughs to make sure that I find all the little optimizations I possibly can and can be nice and efficient, so that as I keep grinding 5x5, I'm grinding in the right things. That's it for today. I read the comments, don't always respond to them. Join the Discord if you want to message me. Would love to hear from you. And now I'm going to get back to work.